Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thriving Through Trials, the program that's dedicated to bringing hope and inspiration to those facing debilitating or potentially debilitating diseases and challenges. I'm Dr. Samantha Benjamin-Allen, a board-certified physician in physical medicine and rehabilitation, and founder of Freedom Wellness Physiatry, a direct specialty rehabilitation consulting practice serving the DMV in the home setting. In this show, we'll be shining a light on remarkable individuals who have not just survived, but thrived beyond their circumstances. We'll be exploring their journeys as their resilience and the strategies they've used to regain mobility, independence, and improve their quality of life. Our goal is to empower, encourage, and motivate you, our viewers, and provide a source of inspiration in the face of adversity. Join us as we uncover stories of triumph and learn how to thrive through life's toughest trials. Today, we have a returning special guest, Carmelise Vincent, on our episode entitled Thriving with Cerebral Palsy Part 2. This is a special episode unlike previous ones because today we're going to be talking about trauma. Trauma affects many of us in life, but we don't often hear about trauma and disability because these are two challenges that can make things difficult. But Carmelise is going to share her journey through trauma and how she has overcome, and I'm hoping it will be inspiring for all of you today. So welcome, Carmelise. Please introduce yourself. I'm going to cut off my video since we're both not on video today, so we can just be in sync here.
Yes, it is my privilege and honor again to be with you on this live podcast episode of Thriving Through Trauma. And I am a disability self-advocate. I have cerebral palsy. I am currently getting my second master's in clinical mental health counseling. And I hope my testimony and my story not only educates but promotes advocacy and awareness for trauma and disability, as well as trauma within the church setting. And so that's my goal to this episode, so that you will be blessed and inspired, and hope to um open your horizon to see how you can best help those with persons with trauma, um and how to um have coping skills, if that makes sense.
Yes. And just for those who haven't listened to or heard our first episode together, Carmelise is just an amazing young woman who is thriving with cerebral palsy, as she shared in her last episode with me. And I encourage you to listen. It's definitely worth a listen. And she is doing great things out in New Jersey, where she's currently located. And she's been on various stages to speak and advocate for those with disability. So, Carmelise, I want you to share with us a little background about the traumas that you've experienced and the impact that you noticed they had on you as you continue to grow into adulthood.
uh the impact. Well, where do you want me to begin? The beginning, middle, currently?
Well, we don't have to go honestly. I want you to just share what you're comfortable sharing. So, um, we got the kind of the beginning from birth because birth was traumatic too,
Right.
but we can move to childhood and then you can share anything from that time period and go from there.
Okay, well, as I stated in the beginning of my intro, I want to bring awareness and visibility to trauma and disability and trauma within the church setting. And I believe that it's important to advocate for that, especially when you're disabled. But how do you advocate for yourself when your parents are not of the American background and are immigrants to this nation? how do you advocate for yourself when you are the oldest of the family in the family? How do you advocate for yourself when it seems like you have no likely supports systems in place? Um, this is where I say ask a lot of questions and don't be afraid to ask for help. I think this is something that the Lord is teaching me every single day. My faith is a big part of how I reanalyze and reassess every day, kind of refocuses and challenges me to look at the bigger picture in every area of my life. And as a kid, I think it was harder, and I was physically abused, emotionally abused, verbally abused. I think
Mm-hmm.
sexual trauma is different. I think that's in a class of its own. Um, I used to say that my, so even though I didn't have physical scars or physical evidence of trauma or abuse, but the wounds are where you can't see them, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think it was harder for my siblings, my younger siblings, who are now, grown adults. They, they, I think it was hard. It was hard for me to go through abuse, but it was harder also for them to witness their elder sister going through that abuse, and they couldn't do anything to stop it.
Right. And you said something earlier that did not come through clearly, but what type of abuse did you say was in the class all of its own?
Oh, sexual abuse.
Yes, it is. It is it's one of the most deep rooted pains of the abuses that can occur. And abuse really arises when people in a position of authority or power abuse the authority they've been given, whether it's to protect, to guide, to instruct, teach, whatever that is, to mentor, to pastor. They abuse that authority, and it hurts the individuals who are under their influence. And it's very saddening that this continues to occur. Um, but I want you to share kind of what the impact was on you when you realized uh, maybe triggers or something as you were growing that kind of brought to mind that, perhaps I feel this way or I respond to this way in certain situations because of things that I experienced in my childhood. Did you ever feel like there was a moment when you could attach anything that you were experiencing to that, or kind of what's your opinion on that?
Mm. Thank you. That's a really good question. I honestly feel as a child, there wasn't no necessary triggers or anything that I could say that presented itself because I was just trying to parent my parents, parent my sister and brother, parent everyone except me. I was the adult in the family. And so there was no presenting like triggers. I would say once I moved onto campus at Rutgers and uh, left home. Some argue that I eloped, but it's maybe a part three, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that once I got on campus, I was very hyper vigilant. Everything that was a red Tacoma pickup truck, Toyota Tacoma pickup truck, I was like hyper vigilant. I was like, oh no, I'm going back home. So what I did, I made sure that I posted pictures of my family because I got that. I don't know how I got an extra copy of the family photo at that time. But I posted it and I gave it to the security at the desk. I was like, please, if you ever see these people, don't bring them in. And I remember the security guard, he was pretty taken aback and he was like, but they seem so nice. And I was like, that's exactly the problem. Um,
Oh, okay. So you said you printed pictures of certain family members and gave it to
Uh,
security card? I didn't
no,
hear you.
it was an extra physical copy of a family photo.
Oh, and you gave it to security guard and told them to be on the watch out if any of this person shows up?
Right, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
I let campus police know, but even through therapy, it was hard, and I think advocacy, if I had advocacy during undergraduate, if I had support systems in place, I think I needed more than just church and in school. I think I needed to have a plug-in for Rutgers Newark now than I did
Hmm.
back then. And um it would have my transition and my issues with roommates and housing would have been much smoother because they would have understood. Um, and I would have been, more vocal about getting the resources that I needed. Yeah, so I was very triggered in undergraduate just because I was afraid my dad would drag me back home, beat me senseless and all that. So I was
Wow.
concerned about that. My therapist assured me, him being a Caucasian white male, he said, your parents are not, they may be abusers, but they're not stupid. They may be crazy, but they're not stupid. They're not going to come where there's cameras to bring you back home. They're not going to do that. And if they do, which they won't, if they do, you just show them the camera and tell them, you see that? That's watching you.
Mm,
I will never forget that to this day because he was the therapist that actually got me to leave my abusive household and go onto campus. And that's how you know me now because I left home on a school day.
hmm.
I lied and told my mom that there was no school, that there was no classes, there was no school, and that I needed my my library card. I needed my social security card. So she gave me my, I don't know what it was, but some
Like a social security card or birth certificate?
I needed my birth certificate. And she's like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, she didn't question it. And I was like, okay. I'd already packed a bunch of my clothes because my therapist was like, when you get your clothes, get a bunch of trash bags, stuff them behind your dresser, and then when you're ready to leave, just start dumping stuff in bags.
Mm.
And I was like, are you sure? And he's like, I'll see you on Monday and you let me know how it goes. I was like, but how do you know it's gonna work? He's like, I know.
So how did you find this therapist? Let's back up because there's something profound that you said earlier that I just wanted to point out.
Mm,
In abusive situations, oftentimes we hear people who are not in the midst of it and don't understand say, well, why don't they just leave? Well, why do they keep going back? Why do they? And it seems so simple to the outside eye, but it's very complex. And there is something within us as humans that longs for belonging. Even if our family is dysfunctional, if
yes,
you study, for example, children who've been put in foster care, they still want to go back to their home, not because they want to be abused. There is just this familiarity uh, that tends to pull until you get to a place where you can be empowered and understand fully that this is safer for me not to be there. And I'm glad you had a therapist who was working alongside you to help you become empowered and kind of to quell those fears of, well, what if this doesn't work? And what if, because that's what tends to happen. Well, what if they catch me? What if I get killed trying to leave? And these are valid fears.
right,
Um, but staying in an abusive situation could ultimately lead to your death
right,
anyway. So it's important to have support. You need somebody, at least one trusted person who can be there in the process of you trying to rebuild a better life so that you're not alone. So this therapist you're talking about, how did you find them? Did you look into therapy for yourself? Were you referred? Like, how did you come across this person?
I so Sammy, you know me very well, and I was walking with my crutches, but I don't know what happened that day. I had brought my food over. This is before me leaving to go on campus. This is what actually prompted me to get the help that I needed. So my mentor, former career advisor, academic career advisor at Rutgers, Newark, I won't say her name.
Mm-hmm.
She she is actually still there. And we talk on a regular. And I remember it well because I had fallen on the floor. She said, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And I said, I was crying. I'm like, cheering up and crying. I said, "I can't do it anymore." And I was bawling in her office. And uh, she made a call. I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
she made a call without me knowing because I was in the room. She talked to the receptionist, and I don't know what she mentioned, but she could talk to the receptionist enough to let her know that I needed counseling services right then and there.
Ah,
And so as we're walking, she's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "Thank you so much. Thank you so much." And I'm looking at the time because my mom is like, "I'm gonna be there at 3 o'clock to come pick you up." And it was always at 3 o'clock. If I ran 1 minute late, it was a verbal in slew of words and all that. So I remember writing on the intake form, if I don't get help, I'm gonna hurt myself.
mm,
So now being on the other
wow.
side of that is instant red flag for suicidal attempt. And so they took me right away, and he saw me. He said, "What's going on?" I was bawling. He said, "You don't have any wants to kill yourself." I said, "No, I just need somebody to help me."
Uh-huh.
And so I
So that
remember
was your plea for help.
that was that was my plea for help. That was my plea for help. And that led to him telling me like, "Hey, um, you know, get trash bags, get clothes." I first had to secure the ride. I first had to secure the housing. So, so I had to secure all that before I can get bags and clothes, get the laundry ready, and figure out, well, there's another young lady. Well, she's now a mom, but
Mm-hmm.
she was my colleague at the time, and she's
Mm-hmm.
also a track star. And so I said, "Hey, are you busy on so and so day?" It was in the library, and
Mm-hmm.
I was, I said, "Are you busy?" She said, "On this day, no, why? What's going on?" I said, "I actually need help. I need to move on campus." She's like, "Well, I have a meet that day, but I'll tell you that if I'm going to pick you up, you need to be ready by 9 o'clock." And
So by
I was,
9 o'clock, you had to have everything ready to go.
yes. She didn't
Okay.
know anything about my history. She did not know anything about abuse, about that I was in an abusive relationship.
Yeah, you just needed her to get you, and that's the only communication you requested at the time.
Correct.
Got it.
And
Did
so
she prove dependable? Did she show up?
she sure did.
Nice.
Now, one thing I have to tell you, this wasn't my first time trying to leave.
Oh, how many
Here,
times?
probably my second or third time. This is
Okay. So
my
this was a plan kind of calculated, and through the experience of prior attempts that failed, you kind of got a handle on it the last time? How did it go?
The first time was horrible. I waited for my aunt to come and pick me up. She never did. She never showed. And my mom
Wow.
laughed in my face. She's like, Carmelise is crazy. Oh, the moon. And I was like, you're kidding. I'm crazy? Really? Okay. So I verbally told you I was gonna leave, but the next time I leave, I won't tell you because I made that mistake and told you that I was leaving.
Hmm.
And I packed my bags and I waited by the door. No one showed up. So I said, this time, I'm not going to tell you anything. And I didn't.
Right.
To this day, my parents are still trying to figure out who,
Who picked you up that day?
to this day.
They don't need to know. That's okay.
We need to know.
You know, God knows. Thank you for that good friend.
Yes.
Yes. So now that you got out and you're in college, the therapist you were working with, did you continue with this person throughout the years, or have you changed to someone else? Kind of how's that going?
He unfortunately had to, uh, he was no longer my therapist after a couple months because he got another job offer. I bawled and cried. I thought he was like abandoning me, all the feels.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm sorry, it's just my dream job. I want to work with veterans. And I understood because I knew with PTSD that I would eventually want to work with people with trauma and PTSD. And it
Right.
manifests itself in different ways. And so he really encouraged me to keep doing what I'm doing. And he was proud of me. And yeah, so I've been in therapy now for 20 years. 20 years or so, almost 20 years.
Wow. And have you been doing this ongoing or kind of like on and off when certain things arise?
Right. I would say on and off in between hospital admissions and things like that. Yeah. Even
Awesome.
even now in the midst of being busy with school, I still make time for my therapist because as a matter of fact, as busy as it got, I put my faith first. I spend time, try this, God, well, the Holy Spirit convicted me to spend more time with Him. And then it's my self-care. So making sure I schedule my therapist appointment twice a week instead of once a week
Hmm.
because it's that more hectic. Then I do physical and occupational therapy, and then I do everything else. But if I'm not okay, I make sure that that nap took real good care of me, and because I needed to realign myself, readjust.
Right. And it
They
sounds like you have your priorities straight because if you're not spiritually connected and you are not well, you can't do any of the other things that you're called to do with excellence. So you got a good program there. You got your support system, you're getting your therapies, you're working, um, and you're ministering, and you're just doing so many amazing things in spite of all that you've been through. And I'm just so grateful that you are here with us sharing because people need to hear this and know that there's hope. Was there ever a time where you felt like you were not going to be able to get out of that house or that you might perish in there?
oh yeah. Um, but a good friend of mine once said, she said, once you're tired, once you're really tired, once you're fed up, you'll know exactly what to do. You won't keep calling the same people, be like telling them about the same thing every single day. And that's what was taxing them, but it was also taxing me. Just
Yes.
verbal vomit and the verbal like the stress of it all. They weren't my therapist, but they might as well have been because it was just hours and hours of talking about the same.
Mhm.
And it's good to know that my therapist actually sees a therapist, you know.
Yes, it's a wise thing for therapists to have their own therapist because the amount of uh what's the word I want to use? The amount of information that they receive on a regular basis in their work can be very draining. And if you're an empathetic person, it can trigger you too if you've gone through some things. So it's good to have your own therapist if you're a therapist. And that's actually what's advised in the guidelines as they're in training. So you're right about that.
Yes.
Um,
And doctors see doctors, so I can't.
exactly. So why can't therapists see therapists? And I'm so glad that you also mentioned that even though you are a spiritual person and you have a close relationship with God, you felt you knew the importance of getting therapy because there are very religious people who feel that getting therapy is not in alignment with being a person of faith. And you are a person of faith and you have a therapist. And I believe that it's a very important asset that is available to us, just like people are gifted and talented to teach and to work in, jobs of healing and various other, industries. Therapy is one of those talents and gifts that people are called to do who are good with counsel, with providing good counsel. So I see it as being in alignment with all of the gifts and talents that exist for us to help one another. So thank you for sharing that and being honest about it, because that's a touchy issue in the spiritual community.
I definitely agree, not only spiritually, but culturally as well, right?
Right. Black culture is really anti-therapist. What do you think I'm going to tell a shrink that I can't talk to or deal with myself or with a friend or with my pastor? But
Yeah.
having a licensed professional individual to work with makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people put more on their pastoral staff or team than is theirs to bear. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
What are some routines that you use to stay grounded and stay level throughout life?
Sleep. Sleep is very important. I think the older I get, the more sleep I need. I believe that with my new regimen, the weaning off of psychotropic medication, that it was prescribed, and then I'm including in that water regimen, water intake regimen, just take being hydrated. Also my faith is a big part of that. So making sure I have that quiet time with Jesus. I have an acronym, I call it QTJ, quiet time with Jesus. And then I go
Love
into
that.
school. Thank you. And then I go into my Sabbath school lesson. I have my journaling session, whether it's on my phone, the new journal app, or if I do write in my my new I have like 5 journals that I write, like everyday journal. Just
Okay.
like of the day, I have a gratitude journal. I just thank Jesus. And then prayer journal. I have a prayer journal where I write, pray for myself or family or just basically for my family or others or friends or whoever needs prayer. I used to color coordinate everything and have it synchronized to a T. That was when I was in the nursing home and really had nothing to do, but mine still growing because I have a prayer wall where I have certain prayers and always I need to rotate it now. Because those 5 or half a dozen prayers I've written out and put on the wall. It's been some time now. Many of them have been answered, so I need to rotate and write out some more prayers.
Yes,
But
praise God for answered prayer. So it sounds like prayer, journaling, um, quiet time are some of your strategies to stay grounded and level as you journey on through life.
yes.
Thank you for sharing. And tell me, has the dynamic between you and your family changed at all at this point in your life? Have you seen any improvement in the relationship, or has it been severed? Sometimes there's reconciliation, sometimes there's not. And in some cases, it's not safe to do so. But uh, do you mind sharing if there's been any change, or have you noticed anything at this point?
So I want to bring you back to when I left home,
Hmm.
maybe tw over 20 years ago. Uh, almost 20 years ago at this point. Um, my mom went to limp so far as to go to the police department declaring me missing, and the police department called me and said, "Ma'am, your mom is looking for you. I'm getting to your answer, and your mom is looking for you." My mom was freaking out. And I said, "Mom, I'm at Rutgers, Newark. I'm not, someplace far. I'm at Rutgers, Newark. I, I would like to, continue on this academic career, and
Hmm.
I know you're not going to be, uh, as it was so much. I can't even remember all of that because it was a lot, and my mom was crying and she said, "I made you your favorite food. Please come back home. Please come back." And
Hmm.
oh, the sergeant, I said, "Sir, I'm not going back home." He said, "All right, it's your prerogative." And that was it. And I remember inviting her to my undergraduate graduation. She said some words that were very colorful and not for podcasting.
I got you.
Um,
So not kind.
Not kind.
Uh-huh.
Fast forward 20 years later, um, I needed her at some points because I wasn't vocal with the needs that I'm at. Again, self-advocacy would have been important at this junction in time, but I wasn't using my voice that I didn't know I had.
Right.
Um, and
And that's a learning process.
yes,
But when you discovered that you had a voice and that it mattered, you became your best self advocate.
fearless,
Yes.
and the sky's the limit for me. I think I am more vocal now, the more extroverted I am, and the more I see like, hey, that's not right.
Right.
Sometimes the Holy Spirit will be like, okay, I'm gonna see when you're gonna talk. Because sometimes
Hmm.
he needs me to be quiet and just like zip it and just listen. Other times he's like, hello, like you can talk now. Like see
Yeah.
something,
Speak up.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, see something, say something, like
Right.
do something about it. I'm like, did that just he's like, you don't wait. There was a situation that occurred at the group home, not with my executive group home director. There was a situation that occurred, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. And I
Uh-huh.
think it was I approached I don't know if I can say her name, so I won't. I approached her about it, the executive group home director.
Uh-huh.
And I said I did not like what went down yesterday. She wasn't involved in this situation,
Uh-huh.
but I told her how I felt, and she said you should have called me right then and there because so and so would have been out of a job. And I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, you see something, I would have not let this situation occur." And I was like, "What?" And so it reminds me now, like every time I see something that looks odd, that's off, I'd rather be safe than sorry. So that that phrase is for me as a clinician, future clinician, to say if I'm not sure if the child is being harmed or if I'm worried. I learned from one of my supervisors that it'd rather be on the safe side of caution than to be sorry. And so
Right.
I rather I rather have to say I'm sorry than be like, oh, okay, I didn't say something. And then something worse happens, you know?
Right.
And so
Better
I,
be safe than sorry, guys.
yes,
Take
yeah,
note of that phrase. It's a
yeah.
good checkpoint for assessing your environment or, your feelings about something that's going on that doesn't sit right with you.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Now, what lessons can you share with our audience from what you've learned regarding trauma and how it's impacted you and how you've perhaps used it to become an advocate today and speak out and support those who might be vulnerable in their
Mhm.
journeys?
I think social media drives at the heart of people and TV in general. Media tends to drive the focus. Well, let
Mm-hmm.
me start off with a biblical emphasis that, we know in Matthew chapter 24 that, we're gonna see things get worse before they get better, right?
Uh-huh.
So I say that as a notion of that yes, there are nice people in the world and people are there to help you, but allow Jesus to help you. Allow, ask him to lead you, ask him to guide you, ask him to show you the way and be receptive of help. If someone is saying, "Can I help you?" Don't be like, "No, no, no." And I'm talking to myself, Sam, because
Yes.
I,
Sometimes we don't want to get help or we feel I'll take care of it. I don't want to become a burden, but honestly, take help where you can get it.
I remember my therapist, different therapist, right? After the first one that had helped me, he said it's interesting that you talk about people that you don't want people to help you, but then you get mad when people don't help you. So which one is it?
Mm, that
And
strikes a chord. What was your response?
I was mad. Mhm.
I remember one time I was speaking to my therapist and I was complaining about just struggling through this issue and it keeps happening. And she just hit me one day with, "It's you." And I'm like, "It's me." And it really had to have some introspection in that moment. And it was like I had an aha moment. My problem was boundaries. I'm the helper, not the one who gets help. So
Right.
I'm just here doing for everybody and letting myself suffer in the process. And she's like, "It's you." I'm like, "Oh, it's me." Anywho,
Love it. I love it. I love it. I love when we can connect both on the other side of the therapist, but I'm also one to be a therapist. And so being at one of my events that I was at, Assistive Technology Summit, and one of the individuals, I won't share her name or her diagnosis,
uh-huh.
she said, did you say that you're going to be a clinical mental health therapist? And I said, I'm a therapist intern. She's like, thank you so much because when I see you, I see myself.
Mm,
And I was like, praise God. I had to, wow, my first like big, like, I said, wow, I said, wow. So yeah,
that's like an affirmation that what you're doing matters.
yeah.
You're touching people's lives by sharing. So I thank you so much for being here today. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we close?
Um, yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help. Mental health is wealth. So the more you ask for help, the more you will get it. It may look it may look bleak, it may look dark, but there is going to be a rainbow somewhere around the corner, and it does get better.
Thank you so much for those closing words, words to take to heart. And I just want to remind everyone Remember that your story, your struggles, and your voice matter. If you feel like it doesn't, please seek help. If you're experiencing trauma or abuse, seek help. And remember, childhood trauma affects health over a lifetime, but there is hope. So I will share some links to some resources in the comments, just for everyone, if anyone needs to reach out. And I just wanted to reference a book I just finished reading recently that's been so eye-opening in expanding knowledge and understanding about trauma, and it's called The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Vagerholt. I don't know if I said his name right, but that's definitely worth a read. It's heavy, so I'm going to put out a disclaimer. It's very heavy, but if you are a caregiver or health professional in any capacity, a teacher, a mentor, pastor, any person who's in a field of service where you are advising, counseling, treating, it's very important to be trauma informed because it's all around us. People we pass every day are carrying this, and sometimes no one knows. And I think the more we know, the more we can help if we use that knowledge and apply it rightfully. So that's one thing. And there's also a lot of work being done by Nadine Burke, who is the Surgeon General of California, regarding adverse childhood experiences. So you can look up her work on YouTube or just search her name, and you will also receive valuable information regarding trauma from
Can
her
I
work.
add one
Sure.
more? Like, Dr. Karen Harvey is the preeminent researcher and teacher on trauma-informed care for individuals with developmental disabilities. She's actually one of my mentors, and I found her through my internship training.
Ooh, Dr. Karen Harvey. I will add that too. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, Carmelise, you have just been a wealth of knowledge and a blessing to have today. So thank you so much. And everyone who's listening, we hope you will join next time. Thank you for tuning in to Thriving Through Trials. If you've been inspired by the incredible stories shared on this show and would like to stay connected with us, make sure to follow us on YouTube and Facebook, or my own wellness journey at Freedom Wellness Dog on Instagram. And remember, if you are a loved one or in the DMV, severely debilitated from a challenging medical experience or disease and are in need of our specialized services at Freedom Wellness Physiatry, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to partner with caregivers and help those facing severe debility achieve greater mobility, function, and quality of life at home. Simply visit our website at www.freedomwellnessphysiatry.com or give us a call at 240-339-5377 to book an appointment. Your journey to thriving begins with a single step, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Remember, your voice, your story, and your struggles matter. Take care, everyone. See you next time.